Good evening and welcome to Secrets of the Future. I'm Pastor Nigel Carolus and thank you for joining in this evening. Our topic for this evening is, who will control the world? You and I like to be in control. I think that the vast majority of our worry comes from not being in control. When we feel like we are in control, then we are at ease. But when we feel like we are out of control, we are terrified. Yet as we will see tonight, everyone is striving to be in control of this world. So who will control this world? Hold on to your seats as we reveal the secret. In 1941, Adolf Hitler predicted a united Europe and a 1,000-year world domination. And in a rather bold manner, Hitler said the following about how he would do this. He said, "See, my people, we do not need anything from God. We do not ask anything from Him except that He may let us alone. We want to fight our own war with our own guns without God. We want to gain our own victory without the help of God." So it's pretty obvious that Hitler wanted to control the world. However, within his own army was a man who fearlessly believed differently. As a rampaging Hitler marched his troops across Europe, Franz Hasel, a German soldier in the elite troops of Pioneer Company 699, boldly told his superiors that Hitler was doomed to failure. The reason was a cryptic prophecy from the book of Daniel, which outlined the future world empires, and Germany was not one of them. And so at the risk of death, Hasel told his leading officer that Germany would never, ever control the world. When he shared it with his superiors, they were so convinced by him that they conserved fuel to allow them to withdraw and return home when the time came. Franz Hasel was a loyal Christian, and he was loyal to God and his beliefs. He trusted in God and remained true to the Bible beliefs for the duration of the war. He also pledged that he would not kill, and so as to avoid temptation in the war, he crafted a wooden pistol in place of his military issue, which he threw away. Franz firmly believed that Germany would not win the war. And you know what happened to him? 2.7 million German soldiers died on the Russian front. And out of Hasel's unit, only 7 survived of 1,200 men. So who will control our future? Who will control our world? Will it be the United States or Israel or China? Will it be a religious leader such as the Pope? Will it be a united Europe? Will one of the nations of Islam dominate the new world? In order to know the future, we must first understand the past. And this amazing prophecy that captured the attention of Franz Hasel is found in the 2nd chapter of the book of Daniel, which we will explore tonight. The book of Daniel was written in the ancient city of Babylon. Many years earlier, Nimrod was the ruler and the founder of Babylon, or Babel as it was known back then. Nimrod was the father of secret mysteries of nature religions, and these mysteries were passed on through the generations until the time of King Nebuchadnezzar. And so Nebuchadnezzar became one of the greats in history. He was a great military conqueror, and he was a great builder. And among other things, Nebuchadnezzar built the famous Hanging Gardens of Babylon. This amazing structure became one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Babylon ruled from the year 605 to 539 before Christ, when it was overthrown by the Medes and the Persians. And so here you can see some representations of some of the wonders of Babylon at the Berlin Museum in Germany, like the Ishtar Gate. And early in his reign, Nebuchadnezzar set out on a military campaign towards Egypt. And so during this campaign, he captured the city of Jerusalem in the year 605 before Christ. And he took captive the best and the brightest of the Jewish nation, including a young man by the name of Daniel. And as a prisoner of war, Daniel remained true to his God, despite being trained in the customs and mysteries of Babylon. And while Daniel was in captivity, God gave him the power to unlock a mysterious dream. And this dream revolved around the future world superpowers and the ultimate future of our planet. It was the contents of this dream that not only stopped Hitler, but also many other aggressive leaders before him and even after him. And so if you have your preferred format of the Bible ready, you can go with me to the book of Daniel in the Old Testament. We will go to Daniel chapter 2 as we read of what happened to Nebuchadnezzar one mysterious night. Let's read from Daniel chapter 2, and we're going to read from verses 1. Now in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him. Have you ever had a dream like that woke you up and you couldn't go back to sleep? I'm sure of it. I've had those myself. And so Nebuchadnezzar has this dream, this mysterious dream, and we are told that it troubled him. And as he lay awake at night, he knew that he had dreamt of something important, but he couldn't remember the details immediately. And so as he still reeled from the dream, he came up with a plan which involved his advisors and the wise men of Babylon. And so what did Nebuchadnezzar ask his wise men, or his official secret revealers, to do? We find the answer when we go to Daniel chapter 2, verses 2 and 4. Then the king gave the command to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans to tell the king his dreams. You see, the Bible, history, and archaeology confirms that these wise men had been trained in all the secret knowledge and mysteries of Babylon. And as intelligence was mixed with magic and religion, these men were believed to be the greatest code breakers in the land at that time. They were used by the king to predict the timing and tactics of enemies, to cast spells on behalf of the king, and even read the future by studying the stars and the planets. However, what they would do is to request to hear the contents of the dream first, and then they would make up an interpretation that would suit them. And so Nebuchadnezzar seems to have been wise enough himself to see through these manipulators. To the wise men of Babylon, the interpretation of a dream was not unusual. It wasn't difficult for them. That is, of course, if the king told them what he dreamt of in the first place. What do you think happened next? Do you think the wise men could reveal the dream? What do you think the result of this was? We find the answer written in Daniel chapter 2, verses 6 to 13. It states that the Chaldeans, which is another name for wise men of the Babylonians, they answered the king and said, "There is not a man on earth who can tell the king's matter." And so naturally the king was very angry. He realized that he'd been deceived all this time. Now, did you read that? What does it say? It says that the wise men of Babylon were frauds. They pretended to know how to predict the future, but they could not. And what's worse is that the king who entrusted his future in their hands, his battle plans, his safety, his security, his confidence, and his trust, it was gravely betrayed. And so what do you think his natural reaction was to these frauds? You find this in verse 12 of Daniel chapter 2. For this reason the king was angry and very furious, and he gave the command to destroy all the wise men of Babylon. You see, the wise men were well accustomed to interpreting dreams, yet all the secret knowledge of Babylon was not sufficient to tell the king the dream that he had forgotten. And how true is it that when they said there was not a man on earth who could interpret it, only a God in heaven, as they were soon to find out. And this is where we find a young man by the name of Daniel coming on the scene. Now when Daniel heard about the situation, what did he ask the king? We find this in verse 16 of Daniel chapter 2. And so Daniel went in and asked the king to give him time, that he might tell the king the interpretation. You see, although Daniel did not practice witchcraft, he was being trained in the secrets of ancient Babylon, and he was therefore counted as a wise man. He too would be put to death with all those who were unable to tell the king his dream. And it's no wonder he was anxious to help the king out with his dilemma. So what does the Bible say? What did Daniel do What was the most important thing that Daniel could do for God to reveal the dream to him? Go with me to Daniel chapter 2, verse 17 and 18. Then Daniel went to his house and made the decision known to Hananiah, to Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they might seek mercies from the God of heaven concerning this secret. You see, Daniel and his friends prayed to the God of heaven. They asked him to reveal the secret of the dream. Daniel and his friends knew and understood the power of prayer. And even today, the most important and effective way to gain supernatural help is to pray to God. When you need to unlock mysteries in your life, when you want answers to your questions, or when you desire support and strength to cope with a tough personal situation, try talking to God in prayer. If you need someone to pray with you, you can contact the number below and we'll pray for you, no matter how small or big the request may be. The God of Daniel, who reveals the secrets of the future, He cares about the smallest detail of your life. So how did God reveal the secret dream of Nebuchadnezzar to Daniel? How did He do this when all the wise men of Babylon could not? Go with me to Daniel chapter 2 verses 19, and it states the following. Then the secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. You see, God often revealed His secrets through dreams, and we find this according to the book of Numbers chapter 12 verse 6, which states the following. Hear now my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to him in a vision. I speak to him in a dream. And so evidently God gave Nebuchadnezzar the initial dream, and then He revealed the interpretation to Daniel in a subsequent dream. And so when God revealed the dream to Daniel, what did Daniel say about the God of heaven? Daniel chapter 2 verses 21 and 22. He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. And so it's clear that Daniel knew the power and the authority of God. And the overall purpose of this whole dream was to reveal the hidden secret that it is God, not human kings or armies, who control the destiny of our planet. We might think that we are in control, but in reality, although God doesn't do all the things that happens in our world around us, He is in overall control of this planet. Though the future may look cloaked in darkness to us, Daniel explains to us in no uncertain terms that God reveals the secrets of our future. And so Daniel explained to Nebuchadnezzar that the dream concerned the latter days, or the end times to come. So what did Daniel say that the king saw in his dream? Go with me to verse 31 of Daniel chapter 2. You, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image. Now, it says clearly that the king dreamt of a giant image or a statue. And this statue stood in front of Nebuchadnezzar and was described as being awesome by Daniel. Can you imagine what thoughts and emotions overwhelmed the king? Can you imagine how Nebuchadnezzar felt at this moment? That if you had a dream and you couldn't remember it, and then someone started to explain it to you, or you did something that reminded you of it, and straight away the dream comes and it comes flooding back. Can you imagine the king getting so excited and shouting, "That's it, Daniel, you've got to tell me more." So what was the contents of this dream that displayed or that revealed the secrets of the future? What were the elements of this dream? What was the contents of this dream? Go with me to Daniel chapter 2 verses 32 and 33. It states that the king saw a massive image or a statue that resembled a man. And interestingly, the statue was comprised of different but clearly marked metals. And so what were these metals in this dream? Firstly, you had a head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, feet of iron, and partly of clay. And so this image looked like a man with varying metals making up different parts of the body, starting with the most valuable on top, going down to less valuable ones at the bottom. And so it's clear that this is not a physical statue, but one that symbolizes something, because a statue constructed like this would not be able to stand with mud at its foundation in the feet. It's interesting to note that God used earthly minerals as the basis for this prophecy. And the value of each material deteriorates as we move down the statue. So it starts with gold at the top, and it ends up in a mixture of metal and mud at the bottom. But that's not the end, because after these metals are described in this image, we see a huge stone that comes next. And so what did this stone do to the image? And what did the stone turn into? Daniel chapter 2 verse 34 and 35. You watched while a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. And the stone that struck the image became a great mountain, and it filled the earth, the whole earth. Now this is compelling stuff, friends. No wonder King Nebuchadnezzar woke up from the dream. No wonder he was so troubled. I want you to notice where the stone strikes the image. Not on the head, nor on any other part of the body, but it strikes the image at the feet. Daniel told the king that a huge rock would hit the image at its clay-bound feet, and that this rock or stone would then take the place of the image and fill the whole earth with its presence and power. And so I'm sure by now the king is so captivated, and who wouldn't be? Daniel has now explained the dream exactly. But what does the dream mean? Daniel goes on to explain that this amazing dream reveals the secrets of our future. What does the head of gold represent firstly? Go to verse 38 of chapter 2. You are this head of gold. So what Daniel says is that Nebuchadnezzar represents Babylon. And we see this in verse 39, that this prophecy is about kingdoms rather than kings. And when you look at the Bible, the Old Testament prophet Isaiah, he described Babylon as a golden city. This precious mineral is a perfect symbol for the wealth, the power, and the superiority of Babylon. Babylon appeared to be impregnable. The city walls were 60 meters high, and it was thick enough to hold chariot races on the top. The city had a moat around the walls with an equal cubic capacity to the walls themselves. The gates of the city were solid brass, and within the city there seemed to be limitless resources. It was the Babylonians who first charted out the heavens when they mapped out the sun and they created the sundial. It was the Babylonians who discovered the system of length, of area, of capacity and weight. And they divided the day into hours and minutes. They were gifted in music and the arts, and they were also brilliant at business. It wasn't long before the city of Nebuchadnezzar became the commercial capital for the region, and riches flooded into this city. Babylon was indeed a golden city, and it appeared to have a golden future. But this wouldn't last forever, or very long at all, in fact. So what did the biblical prophet Isaiah predict would happen to Babylon? Go with me to Isaiah chapter 13, verse 19 and 20. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldeans' pride, will be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It will never be inhabited, nor will it be settled from generation to generation. Nor will the Arabian pitch tents there, nor will the shepherds make their sheepfolds there. Now, this is an amazing prophecy or prediction. God predicted that this city of gold would become desolate. And this is amazing because it is true to this day. Saddam Hussein of Iraq saw King Nebuchadnezzar as his idol, and he attempted to rebuild the city of Babylon. However, the ancient city is gone, just as the Bible predicted. And even today, the great ancient city is but a pile of ruins. It is a country devastated by war and civil unrest. You just have to watch the news to see how true this is. Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom ruled from 605 to 538 BC. And it was the combined forces of the Medes and the Persians that overthrew Babylon in the most amazing circumstances. You see, over 150 years before the fall of Babylon, Isaiah predicted that a man by the name of Cyrus would overthrow the city. And this is exactly what happened. History books confirm that this is a fact. Not only did the prophet Isaiah predict the fall and desolation of Babylon, but the exact name of the person who would do it. The Medes and the Persians were symbolized by silver. They were not as powerful as Babylon, and so they needed to overcome the city through intellectual strategy rather than through sheer strength. And so how did King Cyrus and the Medes and the Persians eventually defeat Babylon? You see, Cyrus was a Persian military leader, and what he did was he diverted the water that flowed from the Euphrates River, and this river ran directly through the city of Babylon. And so when he diverted the flow of the river, he marched his army through the riverbed under the city walls, and he claimed victory in an unsuspecting way. And if you want to read how this happened, you can read Daniel chapter 5 to see exactly how it happened. You see, this amazing thing about this prophecy is that Daniel lived to see it start to end because he served under Cyrus as well. And so Babylon represented the head of gold and the Medes and Persians the arms and chest of silver. What metal was used to represent the third kingdom that we see in the image, the nation that would take over from the Medes and the Persians? We find the answer in Daniel chapter 2 verse 39. It states that the next kingdom would be a third kingdom of bronze. Now the Bible reveals and history confirms that Alexander the Great led the Greeks to victory over the Medes and the Persians in the Battle of Arbela in 331 before Christ. The Greeks were known for their bronze and armor and their swift victories. And many historians documented that Alexander the Great knew his destiny as a result of being shown the prophecies of Daniel. From history, we know that the kingdom of Greece defeated the powers of the Medes and the Persians, and they ruled the ancient world next. And the bronze was a feature in the weaponry and the armor of the Greeks. Alexander is reported by some historical sources as one of the greatest generals of all time. And in his 15 years of battle, he never saw defeat. He certainly had a great kingdom. And there have been many movies made about the Greeks, like 300 for example. But what came next? What is more amazing about this prophecy? What happens next? There's a fourth kingdom that comes, and what metal represents them? Verses 40 of Daniel 2. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron. So we have Babylon first, the Medes and Persians second, Greece third, and then the iron monarchy of Rome, which defeated the Greeks in 168 BC. The Romans were known for their iron and their cruelty. And Rome was a ruling power during Jesus' day and also at the time of the early church. Rome was this great superpower which was dominant for over 600 years. And so those long legs in the image, it resulted in much persecution of God's people. But what happened next? After the fourth kingdom? Did you know that this prophecy of Daniel 2 accurately describes the breakup of Rome into modern Europe? Daniel chapter 2 verses 41 and 42 states, "Whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. And so the kingdom shall be partly strong, partly fragile." So instead of another world empire, Rome would be divided into numerous kingdoms symbolized by the 10 toes. And by 476 AD, barbarian tribes had conquered Rome, and the 10 of these tribes eventually became modern Europe. For example, the Anglo-Saxons became England, and the Lombards became the Italians, and the Franks became the nation of France. It is amazing just how accurately this prophecy has been fulfilled. Would the European kingdoms ever seek to unite? And how would they experience success? Go with me to Daniel chapter 2 verses 43. It states that, As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And so what this dream meant was that after the rule of the Romans, there would be an attempt to consolidate power between nations. And so the nations of Europe would mix together, both economically and through intermarriage. However, the Bible prophesied that they would never become fully united. They would always be separate, and they would never become a single entity in the same way that the USA is, for example, today. This aspect of the prophecy has thwarted dictators and military leaders for hundreds of years. You have leaders like Charlemagne or Napoleon or Kaiser Wilhelm and Hitler, who all attempted to unite Europe, but they failed. Even the European Union is doing its best to unite Europe. But what did the Bible say? You see, Kaiser Wilhelm and Hitler said that this prophecy of Daniel chapter 2 had no bearing on them. Wilhelm said, Daniel's prophecy does not fit with my plans. I can't accept it. Where Charlemagne and others have failed, I will succeed. Hitler had an army of 5 million, and he promised to do what Kaiser Wilhelm couldn't. He promised to unite Europe and build an empire that would last for 1,000 years. But the prophecy is sure. While they might try to unite, it won't last long and it will not be secure. And so what happens after this attempt to unite? Will there be another worldwide kingdom? What happens next in the future? Who will control this world? Who will set up the final kingdom? Go with me to Daniel chapter 2 verses 44. And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 4 states, that rock was Christ. You see, the Bible predicts that it will be Jesus who will set up his kingdom next. It will not be China. It will not be the USA. It will not be Israel. There will be a fifth world empire, an empire that is ruled by the King of Kings, Jesus Christ. And the best news of all is that this kingdom will last forever. But is it a kingdom as we know it? What will happen to the earthly kingdoms, our planet, when God sets up his kingdom? Daniel chapter 2 verse 44 continues and it states, it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms. You see, the stone that strikes the statue at its feet, this indicates that Jesus will come during the time of the divided nations. The kingdoms of the world will be destroyed when Jesus comes. This event could happen at any time according to this prophecy. Because as we look down through human history, we can see that we are living in the time of the toes in this image that Nebuchadnezzar dreamed of. Just all the previous aspects of the prophecy have been perfectly fulfilled. So it will be that Jesus comes during this time to establish his kingdom. And Jesus will not establish an earthly kingdom that will rule a world with sin and war and suffering and death. He will establish a new kingdom where everything is new and perfect peace reigns. What did Nebuchadnezzar say when Daniel explained the whole dream to him? What did he tell him? We find this in Daniel chapter 2 verse 47. Truly your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets. You see, when Nebuchadnezzar saw that Daniel's God could remember his forgotten dream, that Daniel's God could tell the future and overrule any earthly kingdom, he knew that this was the true God. Nebuchadnezzar was overwhelmed with the power of God to both give the dream and to interpret the dream, the secrets of the future. Daniel lived to see the dream to start to be fulfilled some years later. And so what does this dream mean for you and me tonight? Why share this? See, for us it means that this prophecy gives us confidence that God is the only one who knows what lies ahead, that God is the one who is in control of this world. And so we recap with the following 3 points this evening. God has the ultimate control in this world. We might think that people are in charge and kingdoms are in charge, but God is in control. Secondly, we are living in the last days of Earth's history. You see, this prophecy revealed to Nebuchadnezzar and Daniel shows us that we are at the end of time, that Jesus will soon return and put an end to suffering that we see around us. And lastly, God's kingdom will last forever. You see, the God of the Bible, the God of Daniel 2, and the God above is God of all. Is a God to be loved and worshipped, a God to be trusted and obeyed, a God who provides hope and certainty in a divided and morally weak world. The question is, do you want to commit your life and your future to the God who controls the world? Do you want to be a part of His kingdom that will come and rule forever? After seeing the way, how God understands the future, and God has ultimate control of the events of this planet, are you willing for Him to lead in the future of your life? If it is your desire, I want to pray with you as you commit your future to Him. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you that you know the future, that you know who controls the world, that you are the one who controls the world. Thank you, Heavenly Father, that we can trust you and for sharing this amazing prophecy more than 2,500 years ago that reveals to us the secret of our future. I want to pray, Lord, that you'll help us to entrust our future to your hands, knowing fully well that you are coming soon. Even if we've failed, we've forsaken you, we haven't known you, if we've rebelled against you, help us, Lord, to trust you, because you are coming very, very soon. I'm praying for each listener and hearer. May you be, O God, be glorified in their lives. May you see their commitment, and may you bless them and keep them until you come and that stone strikes the image and becomes powerful and grows until it fills the whole earth with its presence. We want to be there. Help us in Jesus' name. Many people have claimed to be Jesus Christ or to know the exact date of His return. But what does the Bible say? Find out what signs we should be looking for in part 3 of our Secrets of the Future series tomorrow night, same time, same place. I look forward to seeing you there. God bless.